Hey there! I wanted a small bag for my upcoming vacation that was just big enough to hold my essentials, and after scouring the internet for the perfect bag, I decided it would just be easier for me to make it myself. This little bag that I came up with has a zippered pocket for cards, a slip pocket on the front, and is fully lined with an interior pocket that is perfectly sized for my phone, and just enough space for keys, sunglasses, and a small notebook. I love being able to customize something exactly for my needs, so this is She's Making Something, and today I'm sewing a mini crossbody bag. I already have a huge diaper bag that I carry with me everywhere, but it is not needed 70% of the time anymore. So I started by measuring my basic items that I need to carry around with me, and then designed a bag that was just big enough to hold my stuff without any extra bulk. I wanted an interior pocket for my phone, a zippered pocket for cards, and also an exterior slip pocket for my mask because these are still COVID times, and I wanted an easy place for it when taking it on and off all day long. I'm still in the diaper phase of my parenthood, so I also made sure my bag was just big enough to hold a diaper and a travel pack of wipes. For this project, I used fat quarters, and I found this really cute anchor print in both the blue and the white, and I thought it'd be perfect. I also used a small 7-inch zipper, some stiff iron-on interfacing, 1-inch D-rings, and a new zipper pull to make the hardware match, and also some magnetic snaps. After cutting out all the pieces for the bag, I used what fabric was left to make 1.5-inch wide strips for the bag strap. I need the strap to be 48 inches long, so I sew all my little strips together. Instead of sewing across in a straight line to connect them though, I lay them right sides together at a 90-degree angle in the corner, and then sew diagonally across. I feel like this makes a stronger seam than just sewing straight across. I sew all my strips together this way for my white anchor print and also the blue. Then I trim all my seams and iron them open. Now that I have my really long 1.5-inch wide strip, I'm going to fold it in half and iron it lightly to mark my center line, and then fold in both edges to that center and iron it. So now I have one flat side and one side that looks like double doors. I do this all the way down the entire 48-inch strap and then do it again with the white one. When it is time to sew them, I place the sides with the folded edges together so they are hidden within the strap, and then sew along both long edges to close it up. Now that I have my double-sided bag strap using both the blue and the white to make it very cohesive, I use that same technique to make two smaller straps that are going to be the holders for my D-rings. Slide the ring to the middle of the strap, and then just sew across to keep it in place. The next thing I make is the little zippered pocket on the front of the bag. Both of these pieces of fabric are 5 by 8 inches, and the white is the exterior of the pocket and the blue is the lining. So I make a zipper sandwich along one of the short edges, right sides of the fabric facing together, and the top of the zipper facing the exterior fabric, and then sew it together along that top zipper tape. Flip it all around so that the right sides are out, and then top stitch along the zippered edge. One side of the zipper is all nice and clean. Now I attach the other side by flipping up the bottom edges of the fabric to make another zipper sandwich, right sides together, and sew it. Flip it around so the right sides are out again, and I can top stitch. It goes easy if the zipper is open all the way. The zipper is stitched and clean. It's not going to snag on anything. The outside is white and the inside is blue, which is opposite the rest of my bag because I wanted a contrasting pocket. But this isn't a pocket, it's a cuff. So to make it a pocket, I flip it inside out again and flatten it, positioning the zipper not right on that top edge, but about an inch down from the fold. I make sure the zipper tab is in the middle so there's a wide enough opening, and then sew up both sides right over the zipper teeth. Trim up those seam allowances, cutting off the extra zipper tape that's no longer needed, and then I use the opening in the zipper to flip the pocket right side out one more time. Then I top stitch along that upper edge and the little pocket is done. I cut two 10x7 rectangles for the main body of my bag. From now on, blue is the exterior and white is the lining. To give my bag a little more support and structure, I cut some stiff iron-on interfacing a little smaller than my fabric and ironed them into place. I pick one of the pieces to be the front of the bag, and that one gets the little pocket. I don't want to place my pocket too close to the bottom edge because I need a seam allowance, and I'm also going to box the corners, which will need some space too. So about 2 to 2.5 inches from the bottom edge is good. I take my time to measure everything and make sure it is centered, and then I sew along 3 edges, leaving that top edge open to create the extra slip pocket. I cut 2 more pieces which are 7 by 4 inches and rounded 2 of the corners to make the closing flap. The white lining piece is going to get 1/2 of the magnetic snap, which I sew on by hand. When I place the snap, I measure to make sure it is centered and remember to move it a little farther from the edge because of the seam allowance. I added interfacing to the blue piece because that's the exterior one, but I really should have added it to the lining to give more support to the snap, but whatever. Then I sew them right sides together along the 3 rounded sides, leaving the long straight edge alone so I can flip it out. Trimming the seam and clipping the corners reduces bulk in between the layers and helps give a nicer edge once it's right side out. Now I'm going to top stitch to really give it a finished look. The closing flap is all done, so now I grab my other 10x7 rectangle, which is the back of the bag, and lay the flap outsides together along the top edge and sew across. When I make this bag again later, I also add the D-ring straps in between these layers and sew them all together at this point. I missed it this time around and I have to fix that later, but this is when I would add them when I make it again. The outside of my bag is almost ready. I just have to add the other half of the magnetic snap above the zippered pocket. I measure the distance from the edge to the magnet on the flap and then subtract 1 inch to get the distance from the edge for my other magnet and sew it on. The lining of my bag is 2 more 10x7 rectangles in the white anchor print, and I want an interior pocket. I was originally going to use the anchor print for the pocket too, but I mismeasured and ran out of fabric, so I grabbed some plain white from my stash and cut 2 5x8 inch rectangles. I sew them together but leave an opening in the bottom. Trim the seam allowances and corners, flip it around, and then top stitch across the edge with the gap, tucking in that seam allowance. The edge that has been stitched is now the top of my pocket, and I center it on one of my lining pieces, keeping it a little closer to the top than the bottom, but staying mindful of the seam allowance, and then sew around the remaining 3 sides. Now I take my 2 lining pieces and sew them right sides together along both sides and the bottom. I also messed up here because I should have left another gap in the bottom edge like I did with the pocket, because that's needed for turning the entire bag right side out, but I figured that out and fix it later. I do the same thing with the exterior pieces of my bag, right sides together, so the bottom and sides, no gap needed on this one though. I wanted to give the bag a little more depth so it's not just flat. To do this, I box the bottom corners by pinching the side and bottom seams flat against each other so they make a little triangle. I want 1 inch of depth, so I find the spot where the hypotenuse of my little triangle measures 1 inch long and sew a line right there. I measure and sew on both corners and then cut off the extra fabric. This gives some nice little boxy corners for my bag, and I do the same with the bottom corners of the lining as well. Now I have my lining and my bag, and it's time to stick it all together. With the lining inside out and the bag right side out, I shimmy the outside of my bag into the lining, matching up the edges and side seams. This is when I realized I forgot to add a gap in the lining, but some quick work with everyone's best friend, the seam ripper, got me the hole I needed. This is another point to add the D-ring straps by sliding those into place upside down and lining up the raw edges. That's what I did here, and it would have been just fine, except that I didn't take into account when I made my closing flap, and there wasn't enough space to line up the ring straps exactly on the side seam like I intended. I went ahead with it anyways and stitched a seam through all the layers around the top edge. Find that gap I made in the lining and turn the entire project right side out. Go back to that gap, top stitch the opening closed. Then I shove the lining into the bag where it belongs and top stitch some more around the opening. After the bag is all sewn together, I recognize that my ring straps are not working the way I want, and I make my plan to use my seam ripper some more to pull out the straps, sew up the holes, attach the straps to the back of the bag. But before I could work up the gumption to take on that repair, I decide to distract myself by replacing the zipper pull. A little snip from some wire cutters removed the old one, and the new one slides right into place, matching the hardware throughout the bag. I finally worked up the courage to rip my bag apart, and this is the solution I came up with. After removing and re-stitching the seams, I attached the straps to the back of the bag and then covered up the raw edge with some little contrasting anchor squares. It was a decent enough patch and adds a cute detail to the bag that wouldn't have been there otherwise. The final step is attaching the long shoulder strap. I thread it through the ring and fold the raw edge under, and then secure it with 2 lines of stitching for extra strength. The reason for the rings at all is that when the shoulder strap starts to wear out, this will make it easier to cut off and add a new one than if I had just sewn the strap into the bag without any hardware. And the bag is done! It is perfectly small and lightweight with all the pockets I need. This bag was so easy and cute, and I decided I wanted to use it for everyday errands, but although I love the anchor print and it is perfect for vacation, it is a little bold and busy for my everyday. So I took what I learned, fixed my mistakes, and made myself another bag using some brown leather details on a light green polka dot print. I love this one too, and I'm so happy to have these little bags that I can just grab and go whenever I want. As Daniel Tiger says, yes, I have little kids, if there's something you need, try to make it yourself. Don't forget to head over to my channel to see some other things I have made, hit that like button if you enjoyed this project, and subscribe to get notified the next time I'm making something. Thanks for watching!